absolutely read it well. There are still one or two for Mr. Okoye. Please go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Okoye, I just wanted to take you up on this before you run off. Yes, you have given us the assurance of INEC transparency, assurance of credibility, but then there is one that I don't know if you can assure us. Nigerians are generally impatient. We want this like yesterday. Everybody wants to know what's going on. So how long is it going to take before we have the final results?
We, as I pointed out, we are as anxious as Nigerians and the international community in having the results of this election as expeditiously as possible. We don't want Nigerians to wait for too long. We don't want the anxiety to continue. We want everybody to relax. But as I pointed out, we at the National Collation Center, we only receive what we are given. If we are not given, we cannot receive. The state collation officers for the presidential elections must first of all come to the National Collation Center with from EC8D, which is the scores of the candidates at the state level. It is after they have presented the scores of the candidates at the state level that the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, who is the returning officer for the presidential elections, will now enter the same figures state by state in from EC8DA, which is state by state collation of the scores of all the political parties. Thereafter, he will also record state by state into form EC40G. That is the summary of the reports of the number of registered voters in areas or in polling in areas where votes were cancelled or where there was disruption of the voting process, and then compare that particular figure with the figure in the state-by-state collation of the presidential election results and see whether it has the capacity of affecting the overall figures. If it doesn't have the capacity of affecting the overall figures, and if all the political parties have satisfied the constitutional and legal requirements, then it will now be transferred into Form EC8E, which is the declaration of results form. And then he will make a declaration and make a return for the presidential elections. But we are waiting for the state collation officers coming from the different states. And you know, Nigeria is a country of diversity in terms of geography, in terms of demography, and also in terms of capacity. There are some of our states that are in the riverine areas, so the speed with which you expect the results from those areas will not be the same speed with which you will expect results from states that do not have any huge demographic challenge. Some of the results are going to come by road, some are going to come by air. So the state collation officers will also wait for flight to come into the Federal Capital Territory before they come with their results. And you know that there were also in some states where we did not, where because of one challenge or the other, elections could not hold on account of maybe logistics and so on and so forth. Some of them had their supplementary elections yesterday. So those supplementary elections will be added to the overall figure, which the state collation officer will announce at the end of the day. So we are quite hopeful and we are confident that the states are running fast. By the end of today, we will see how many states have reported. And by tomorrow, I'm sure we will have gone far. And then we are going to be there all the time. So the moment the last state brings the result, we will conclude this particular process. We are anxious to announce these results, but we urge for patience from the Nigerian people because this process has its own dynamics. It's stage by stage, and each stage of the process must be completed. So we ask for patience, we ask for more perseverance, and we assure the Nigerian people that we are going to be very, very transparent in what we do. And because of that transparency, most of what is going on is being transmitted live and being recorded live in all the states of the Federation. And all the agents of the political parties are witnessing this particular process and also intervening in making sure that calculations are done right and also in making sure that nothing untoward happens. So we ask for more patience, but we are dynamic, we are creative, we are innovative, and we are following this process, and we are going to follow it to its logical conclusion.
Mr. Okoye, you have given us the explanation. You have not given us a day.
I cannot. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission is the returning officer for the presidential elections. He will only make an announcement when he has received all the reports and all the scores from all the states of the Federation. So every state must report before an announcement will be made. By the time I get back to the situation room and get back to the Collation Secretariat, which is in an open space, I will make an inquiry on how many states have arrived, and we are not going to wait until all the states come in before we begin to make the announcements. The moment you come, you take the podium, and then you present the scores of the candidates to the Nigerian people. So we are hopeful that by the end of today, we will see how many states we have. And that will determine the speed with which we move. But we are going to be in touch with all the states to make a determination on when they have completed the process. But you know that the collation officers at the state level are not permitted to receive phone calls when they are engaged in this particular process. So whatever report we are going to get from the various states will be second-hand reports, maybe from any of the staff witnessing the collation, since we do not want any interference in the collation process. So by tomorrow, we will be sure of how many states we have, but some of the states are still collating. And if they finish collating this night, the state collation officers for the presidential elections, we take the next available flight and arrive at the Federal Capital Territory, and then go to the Collation Secretariat for sequencing of the time they will present their reports. So we are moving fast, and we hope that at the pace we are going, that we will soon get the final result, and the waiting will be over. But I cannot, in good conscience, tell you with some level of certainty when the results will be announced. I don't have that capacity. I'm not the returning officer for the presidential elections, and I don't know what is going on in the various states as at now. But I'm sure we are moving fast, and Nigerians will be kept informed at every turn of events.
All right, well, I guess, especially when you say, if you don't receive there, you cannot give. So many will be waiting, but that then suggests that there will be a lot of focus and attention on what is going on in states. But because at the end of the day, it's only what you receive in Abuja that you'll have to announce. But all right, well, we understand you need to run. We appreciate you talking to us this morning. Mr. Festus Okoye, National Commissioner for Voter Education for INEC. Thank you for your time this morning. But Mr. Tomi, if I bring it back to you here, have a listen to his explanation concerning, look, we just have to announce it. It does suggest as though, if they put all focus in states, does that suggest from his explanation that no matter the pressure you put on the states, they may not be able to successfully alter figures? Or is it that if they alter the figures...
I like the way you said it, they may not be successfully, you know, that's uncertainty in the use of a language by service implicit.
But I have to play safe, you know.
It's
better
very
to be safe than sorry. Isn't that what they say?
Because let's be fair, and let's be fair about it, because one would expect, say, like American electoral process will be devoid of manipulation of any stuff, because of all that we have heard about how perfect it could be. Even in that, there were allegations of collusions. If you go back even to, if you remember, Gore election with Bush, yeah. The swing state, when something happened and it was alleged that I think it was Texas or so, that there was they thought there was some manipulation which called for a rerun or something like that. The election history has never been that of perfection. It is always that of we are striving towards excellence in those climes. But here in Nigeria, we have always had a lot of issues to do with the fact that, you know, there is, let's call it, innate tendency to want to swing things contrary to how it should go in terms of power brokers or whatever, the expectations of people somewhere. And that has caused a lot of trust deficit. So your use of that language, to me, it's very good. they may not be. Of course, anything could still happen. But we just hope that, just like Mr. Okoye had told us, that the process will throw up some transparency more than what we had seen in the past. We saw something close to it in 2015. But even if you remember, 2015 was contested somewhat by some people. It's just that, okay, the arrowhead of the political party said, look, I'd rather concede defeat just because of the entity, the nationhood and everything. But it's still open. If you look at 1999 election, 2011 election, you find that the process has never been transparent to the extent that one can say with conclusion or certainty that there is no manipulation somewhere. We hope that will not be seen to the extent that we have seen in the past. We hope so, but...
Mr. Amadi talked about what must be done to ensure that this process becomes even more transparent, having the players to, live up to some standards. But what can we do legislative-wise to ensure that I believe that we're above. We're far above, because coming from 2015, the challenges that we faced during the elections, one would have expected that in 2019 now would have eased up on those challenges, but they're still staring us in the face. Do you think that legislation plays a very critical role in trying to address some of these concerns that could easily be wished away?
Let me say this. I salute the brilliance of Mr. Mahdi in the analysis that he gave about the participants in the process. So far, the only body where all eyes are kind of on is just INEC. But INEC is just probably one out of the whole process. There's several, civil ad hoc staff, the mentality of his ad hoc staff, the security agencies, and what have you, and even the agents. Not even probably you have an agency that is trying to make sure that things are good, but they have an agency that is trying to make sure things are good, but the agents of that security outfit are probably not as imbued with all these things about. Let me just put it this way. There's a need for us to revalue our belief system, our cultural orientation. I think we it's not just about the national sitting down, the national, what they call it, input, national conference and what have you. I think that's a need for us to self-evaluate, to come to terms with what value do we place on life? What values do we place on truth, on integrity, on honesty? Is
legislation good enough to address this?
It won't address it because, see, there are schools of thought that say that is, in jurisprudence, legal jurisprudence, we have people that believe that is what the people say that is law. People that believe that what the judges say that is law. People that believe that is what the law says that is law. Because we have plethora of laws that have been put in place, but hardly obeyed more or less in disobedience. I mean, what do I call it now? They are not obeyed. I think it's I'm sorry to say, I'm not trying to label us, but you find a place where you say, don't park here. That's the exact place you find everybody park here. The law will be there. So it's not about the law for us. It's about the reevaluation of our orientation.
All right, let me get back to Mr. Mahdi on this one briefly, because much as Mr. Okoye has highlighted the processes for the announcement of results, right from EC8D, EC8DA, EC40G, EC8E, but what about the process leading up to EC8A itself? Do you think that we need to focus on that and see how do we ensure it's, to a large extent, foolproof? Or are we okay with the way it is?
You see, if you follow elections, the length of time that some of us have, you would have observed that there is a novelty that has been introduced by this current INEC, taking it away from where Jega left it. You see, the weak points, the weakness over the years has always been not in voting. Of course, before now, voting has been from 1999 to 2007. You had situations where nobody bothered to vote. People sit down, they do the optics of queuing and all that, and then people just write results and announce. We've had the instance of in 2007, where some of us as observers were in the INEC collation office in Asaba, waiting for the results to come from the various local government and wards. And while we were still there, the returning officer was there, the collation officers were there. We turned and looked at a channel, and the former INEC chairman who was announcing the results of the outcome of the results in an election where some people were even still voting in Delta State. Of course, that election was upturned. There has been a major shift. The introduction of the card reader technology, the PVCs, ensured that, unlike where you now allocated votes, sometimes people voted, they look at the shortfalls, and then they allocated themselves, and then you have massive turnouts. You're not seeing those massive turnouts anymore. The card reader technology and PVC stopped that, so you can only play with the number that are accredited on the day. And that was why the commission insisted on what it called the simultaneous accreditation and voting system. Unlike before, where people, you accredit, then you go home and then come back, the commission said no, as you are accrediting, you are voting, so it does not allow you room to play around or to allocate votes. But now, something happened. The introduction of a form called the form EC60E. Now, the form EC60E is the one that agents take with them along and give to their parties. But this commission, under this chairman, introduced the form EC60E, which they call the people's results sheet. At the end of results, the casting of votes and the ballot papers are counted and results are tabulated. That big thing that you see on the wall is the form EC60E, which was INEC's attempt at liberalizing the process of results gathering. So you no longer have a situation where somebody sits down there or the party agents collude with perhaps a compromised INEC ad hoc staff and then allocate results, right? They said that takes the form EC8A into the EC60E, is pasted on the wall. So whatever you are seeing on the social media, people snapping results and pasting, is the form EC60E, which was INEC's attempt to liberalize these results and make it very difficult for anybody to rig. The reports we are getting today is that it is working. Over the course of the night, politicians have been trying to manipulate, but many of these officers, many of the returning officers and the regs are telling politicians, we can't do anything. The results are already out there in the public. There's nothing we can do. And so that is part of the transparency process. So it works magic, it works miracle in Sierra Leone. If you won't forget, for 4 days in Sierra Leone, the politicians, the ruling party held the EMB hostage. But EMB didn't budge because he said everybody has the result. That was an idea taken from the INEC, the EMB. Remember that the current INEC chairman is also the president of the ECONER, that's the West African EMBs. And that was the idea he sold to them. They implemented that idea. It worked. 4 days after, an announcement was made, and the opposition party won. So, back to your question, to answer it directly. Part of the transparency that has been put in place is the liberalization of election results in the form EC60E, which has made it possible for every Nigerian now to have results on his phone. Any party that is worth its salt can tell you categorically right now if it has won the elections, because the results are there with their agents and on the form EC60E, which is everywhere, making it very impossible for anybody to attempt to manipulate results. Okay, well, we'll hear a little bit more about that particular bit, even though I know that Ayo is not happy with all these forms. It says there are too many forms out there. But we'll come back to this in a moment.
Did you know about the EC60?
I'll learn that about you from you right now.
Okay.